isto de crianças de caralho, não? Hoje estava aí uma fantasia qualquer, uma gaja qualquer, não sei, mas depois viem uns chapos de lá pedir música, se eu bem percebi. Hã? Para disfarçar até o roubo das músicas agora. Vocês são do piorio, filhos da puta de assassinos. Os carros são crimes pela lei portuguesa, quem prende é imediatamente ao filho da puta. E repõe os direitos constitucionais e, antes disso, os direitos humanos e o respeito das leis, nomeadamente da propriedade e da privacidade. Filho da puta de assassino, de criança. Dos roubos e dos números e dos registros e via Vodafone também, necessariamente, tem que passar para algum lado, não. Ou nem Vodafone são, ó filho da puta. Mas a brincar com quem, ó cabrão? Ó sua puta! Úrsula, 66 milhões não sei de quê, taxas. É isto que a senhora se refere, a estes roubos? Está a negociar isto com quem? Com os marcianos ou a sua puta assassina? Mas ninguém me responde nesta Europa, só fantasias, ó caralho, criminosas, ainda por cima e assassinos. 14 e 28, dia 7, tornaram cá a entrar, roubaram. Como já vos disse num vídeo que não está publicado, estou offline por crimes Vodafone, espero a reposição da rede. Já vos expliquei que isto é um crime e continuam a fazê-lo todos os meses, o que aponta, sem margem de dúvida, pela repetição ao longo de 3 ou 4 meses, redirecionamento, proteção de interesses de terrorismo internacional, quer mandado de captura do TPI ou da Cúria, ou seja, quem for contra estes filhos da puta, a começar pelo governo. Tinham apagado já, como dei conta ontem num vídeo que não está publicado a esta hora, 14h29, dia 7, dia das bombas em Londres, filho da puta de assassino, que já tinham apagado as faturas de farmácia deste novo ato de tortura sobre este surplus da falta de água há 103 dias, de uma obstipação. Já tinham roubado aquilo que eu publiquei online, se eu estou a publicar online alguma coisa, filho da puta, de assassino, honesta, torturador! E que apagaram também do telemóvel essas fotografias que eu tirei, os bags dessas farmácias. Onde há uma cena agora com um caralho qualquer que aparentemente posto em cena pelo farmacêutico da farmácia Ivone, não sei se é, do Tiago Melo. Tiago, há um nome aqui, esse filho da puta dos smarts e não sei o quê, dos Volvos, é que é Tiago, não sei se é Melo, se não é Melo. Terroristas não querem esperar a verdade ao longo de 20 anos, seu filho da puta. E vieram-me cá roubar da carteira as faturas também, e as últimas despesas para não poder controlar aquilo que vocês continuam a roubar, né? Como diária. Filho da puta de assassino, Montenegro. Filho da puta de assassino, Presidente da Assembleia da República. Filho da puta de assassino, Presidente desta República, de filhos da puta de assassinos e ladrões de crianças. Quero o respeito integral da Constituição e de todas as leis a funcionar neste país. Quero um mandato de captura internacional contra estes caralhos. Todos. Já tenho há umas horas ending outra vez. Os filhos da puta presos para o resto da vida, cabrão. The day before sleeping, they have entered again this night. Why I'm saying this is because yesterday I gave the notice that they have stolen the photos of the invoices. And I was looking for the originals, and I found this one in Alcântara, this farmácia of the center of the corner of Avenida de Ninguém, com Avenida de Alcântara. They have the date now of 10th July, the day of Portugal, and it's the day that they have mounted this tricky card, public information concerning tsunamis, that they have also changed a little bit the color and so on after. Then these people are protecting criminal interests, apparently concerning, in my point of view, what they have destroyed in kill 55 mil pessoas na Venezuela. See if it's true the news, first of all, and by the facts of disposal, because it's not the only one, and it's the knowledge of these fucking policies corrupt that serve these Nazis, as by the facts that I have come, because these days around I say, what are they doing here? And I have commented in videos, and I have written it even in some parts, saying that it seems that someone is preparing against something very bizarre or very strange here. And then I found this day, which I'm not even sure if it's already forgery. Why? Because it's a holiday here, the day of this country, 10th of July. Nevertheless, this is the factor, the invoice concerning this pharmacy, of the Bay of Porcineda, and the others now on the Moreiras, the most recent one that I have by, also disappeared. There's been robbery yesterday from yesterday to today, which means these fuckers still go on, enter the home every night, so it's a crime! And it's a crime in the context of terrorism and genocide. It's my suspicion, in terms of my accusation. Procedure. Disguising and changing criminal responsibility between terrorists of states and making victims even lost reference when they start the new steps on the authorized constant turtle from 2011 after the Japan tsunami, which reinforces on my conscience every day, every second, that this fuck is still going on because they know what they have done concerning tsunamis. Duas primeiras faturas, desta já é a terceira, que já estava apagada dos telemóveis das anteriores, por relações, ligações ilegais via Vodafone, quem prende. Estamos nisso até quando, filho da puta de ladrão. A da Ivone está aqui, falta a 10 de julho, que estava ontem aqui, porque eu tinha verificado as faturas originais, desapareceu durante a noite, portanto não é por obra e graça do Espírito Santo, mas por um cabrão que aqui entrou. E a anterior, da primeira compra, portanto há 3 compras já de Porcinel na farmácia de Alcântara, e isto reforça o roubo dessas 2 faturas, mas essencialmente a de 10 de junho, que eram as referências que estavam na fatura, como eu verifiquei ontem antes de dormir, da relação de proteção com o interesse desta merda de 55 mil pessoas mortas na Venezuela, se isto é verdade, ó filho da puta. Mas a proteger quem? Esse cabrão desse nazi Marcelo e a associação de malfeitores com o cabrão do Cavaco e mais não sei quem, ó filho da puta de assassino. Estão mais roubadas das farmácias ali de Alcântara, da mesma farmácia. A primeira vez foi cozido-me aprendiz, não sei o quê. Perguntei por si neto, não sabia que qualquer coisa, depois parece-me que estava agachada do outro lado ao fundo do balcão, à direita. Pensei que ela estava escondida, que de repente faz assim qualquer movimento, abre a gaveta e tira um porcinelo. Ai, ai, ai. Já me parece que estão aqui a vender uma coisa que não seja necessariamente porcinelo. Primeira fatura, só o porcinelo. A segunda fatura, estava a farmácia com 4 ou 5 mulheres, mas elas tinham atrás do balcão, tinham um molho disso, ou não sei o quê, como eu disse. Todas pareciam estrangeiros, brasileiros, não sei o quê, grandes, não sei o quê, uma estava cá fora, parecia no meio que eu tenho escaparado de cinza, não sei o quê, uns menstruários, parecia que estava a fazer uma demonstração a ninguém que lá estava, na farmácia como cliente, de produtos, não sei de quê, para limpar a pele, seja o raio que for, ou ficções, ou sombras, não falta por aí, com valores concomitantes a nível global, como sabes, até. E comprei essa nova versão do Omeprazol, que já não se chama Omeprazol, e outra vez um porcinelo. Essa fatura foi roubada. Depois há 10 de junho, também está roubada, se é 10 de junho, se vocês já não tinham trocado a data, mas parece-me que não, devia estar aberto ao feriado, não sei, uma questão de verificar as escalas. E na segunda vez, quando eu saio, é que eu vejo aquele placa topomínica nova, com uma indicação perfeitamente absurda relativamente a uma situação desta natureza de uma onda gigante aqui. Já havia coisas postas em cena nos movimentos dos guindastes, que é uma coisa que está também presente. A imagem foi focada no Japão, neste tremorzinho que houve também no Japão agora. As girafas, é o tema das girafas. Até se me aparece aí com uma foto truncada, suponho eu, com o cabelo todo a fazer onda gigante, e não sei o quê. E com umas luzinhas, quando eu vi a fotografia dele, disse, parece-me que está a falar ali do guindaste, pela justaposição, parecia um novo tabuleiro paralelo e junto ao da ponte. Mas há aqui merda. Depois põe uma placa que não tem sentido para fugir aquilo para um sítio onde não serve para nada se fizesse uma coisa daquelas. E depois agora já também pareceu-me que já trocaram outra vez essa placa, porque aquela placa tinha uma representação da onda japonesa da Great Wave, da gravura. E agora meteram lá um verde, não sei o quê, não sei se a placa lá está ainda, como vos disse, que por cima depois tem estas qualidades todas as pessoas de hipnotizar, acho eu, brevemente, não sei, penso até que este último episódio na Ivone, não sei se eu disse, parece o homem, não parece o homem. E de facto ele pareceu-me transtornado, se calhar estava hipnotizado, depois pega no telefone e fala com alguém, ou não sei o quê, uma senhora com atende secretário, não sei o quê, o Tiago Melo já sabe, não sei, diga o que é que era, não. E ele para me telefonar, mas ele já deve saber o que é que eu estou a telefonar, portanto estavam-lhe a dizer quem é o Tiago Melo, afinal, oh, caralho, vamos lá ver se a gente se entende, filhos da puta. Se calhar estava hipnotizado, estava um bocado a pensar nisso. Se calhar depois pelos telefones deshipnotizaram, foi pela conversa com uma quê? Uma médica que deshipnotiza e hipnotiza depois pelos telefones, com uma ordem de comando. Ninguém é filho de puta. Chamei agora um avião chegar com um leme de cauda, tem uma estrela e um azul, aquilo aqui é argentino ou não sei o quê, não é? Ia chegar agora a Lisboa, ao princípio desta tarde. O governo e o Parlamento sem responder e o Presidente são funções dos três órgãos sobre as questões de saúde que eu vos tenho falado, se há problemas ou não de saúde pública nas águas e não sei o quê, como é que estas infecções e não sei o quê, não sei o que mais. Estão aí uns bichinhos outra vez em casa plantados, não são baratas, nem me parecem daqui, como já vos disse. Ontem estava o mal levantar-se outra vez, tipo, louvar a Deus. A cena que me mostrava as baratas no frigorífico, na altura de Médio Oriente, a sombra que vocês construírem com o Pimo Guterres desde setembro passado. Como eu tive o cuidado de ilustrar. 1500 páginas roubadas, trabalho de não sei quantos meses, mais o ano inteiro. Quem paga, quem recupera o caralho. Isto é roubar a canção, não, filho da puta! Lugar para vos mandar prender. Nem que eu os consigo ver. Uma velocidade estonteante que as baratas não têm. Parece uma ilustração dos rattlesnakes. Uma linha antiga, como sabeis, no meio deste crime dos pensantes nacional. Não sei se chamam aquilo rattlesnakes ou o raio que seja. Que eu vi do Japão agora nestes motéis, a seguir ao da novela, um pequenino, não sei, um aqui, um na Venezuela, outro no Japão e um em Itália. A ordem não é esta, primeiro Itália. São câmaras fixas, portanto, via-se um árvore, um porto com guindastes. Cabanava, mas o cabana é a terra onde a câmara está, não eram os guindastes que estavam a mandar necessariamente. Isto é sempre assim. A pessoa não sabe à distância averiguar, mas o comportamento é lógico, porque a câmara está solidária, está no tripé, é uma câmara de segurança, provavelmente. Portanto, o chão mexe, aquilo mexe, e portanto aquilo que se vê na imagem também mexe, mas pode não estar a mexer. Mas é um bocado equivalente às imagens em termos de escala, aquelas que vocês assinaram aí no tsunami do Japão de 2011. Isto é sempre um molho de brócolis nestas aldrabices que nunca são verificadas, ou não aldrabices, a pessoa não sabe, nem se sabe averiguar na maior parte das vezes, cada vez mais difícil, pela própria evolução tecnológica, as capacidades de manipulação do real, das imagens, do real. As imagens não são o real, ponto 1. Mas as imagens cada vez são mais facilmente manipuláveis ao segundo. Vocês estão a preparar a cova final da humanidade, ou no bom sentido. Nesse transporte arrascado nos olhos, aqui como se fosse um animal. Só faltava mais. As novas doenças do futuro e os novos animais. Que tinham destruído, tinham comiam tudo, cimento e não sei o quê, e comem tudo, está a ver? Tinham comido os prédios por dentro e aquela merda por um. Mas pode ser assim. Vale tudo. Do Lucy 2 que não é Lucy 2, porque eu vi aquelas imagens são uma aranha, um ataque num hotel, mata as pessoas todas, não, uma aranha, um robô aranha, está a ver? Que liga os cabinhos aqui atrás como na Matrix, está a ver? Chupa, vai chupando as pessoas. Mas aquilo não é o Lucy 2, acho eu. Porque já tinha visto aquelas imagens do Lucy 2 é recente, ou me foi apresentado. Isto é assim, mas não há referências de tempo, de continuidade, de lugar, de verificação das coisas. É uma ilusão, e estas ilusões nesta escala são mortais muitas vezes. Alguém ainda tem dúvidas? Deve haver muita gente com dúvida. Eu, madrugada, nossa, um crime de roubo de não sei quantos megas, megas não, gigas, deve ter roubado para os 20 a 30, o que rouba, não é? Nestes meses. Aquilo é contratado a 50 gigas, a pacote de dados e não a tempo, portanto, meus senhores, depois penso, isto são crimes, meus senhores, alguém tem que ser responsabilizado. Alguém que vai falar com a Vodafone e os prende. Estamos todos os dias nisto, se não se diz é crime, faz prova que é crime. continuam os crimes, tudo a ser roubado. Eu, sem net, eu um bocado liguei, tentei para perceber se havia net ou não. Estava com velocidades de bytes por segundo. Não é nada, não serve para nada. Mas tiveram a habilidade de pôr umas imagens, estava uma imagem que eu nem sei o que é. Um protesto qualquer das parecia pessoas que estavam numa praia, todos em linha à beira-mar, que era um protesto não sei de quê. Está a ver? Não tiveram a habilidade de meter mais umas sombrinhas, está a ver? Por isso me vão obrigar a mim ou a pescar as pessoas, até pela curiosidade, não é? Para ir comprar mais um cartãozinho, não é? Mais uma voltinha no inferno. É assim que vocês fazem as coisas. São negócios. São gangsterismos, foda-se. Então, estava na net, estava uma coisa que voos de um caça que se chama Raptor, veja lá. Agora meter um nome, Raptor num caça. O Raptor é aquela coisa dos dinossauros, né? Do Spielberg, que eu tenho andado a falar por outras razões. Andava a ver, vejo voos rasantes sobre as praias, percebo aquilo e não percebo aquilo, porque acho que é um problema de segurança, não é? É um problema de segurança, se aquilo te estampa, como às vezes estampa, não é? As pessoas gostam muito, é como os ralis de carros, é a mesma coisa. As pessoas vão ver os ralis, metem-se na estrada, depois levam com os carros em cima, coisas de despido. Há aqui um problema sempre de segurança, do meu ponto de vista, que é sobreponente a tudo o resto do espetáculo, seja o que for. Mas, senhores, vocês fazem tudo ao contrário, matem-se todos, de uma forma ou de outra, não é? Eu estava a mostrar qualquer de raptores e não sei o que, não sei o que mais, aparece besoulos e SA6 e de lixo, tipo, uma referência a uma produtora de cinema americana, salvo eu, não sei se tem a ver com estas linhas do urso e não sei o que, das garras do urso e não sei o que, vem desde o século XV e não sei o que. E depois tinha um serviço que via-se um pedaço do interior da gengiva e dentes faltando, como se tivesse levado uma unhada nos dentes e na coisa. Já estava em cena aí, uma semana ou duas, numa outra variação. É do além. Histórias, não sei, da Buena Vista Alto Disney, né? Que depois se torna Buena Vista, às páginas tantas. Há 20 anos, talvez, ou menos 20 anos. Né? Com o castelo e não sei o quê, as crianças, cabeças cortadas, duas, nessa gravura que eu tenho aí, não sei o quê. Mas pergunto, isto é verdade ou não? Isto é a gravura feita pelo São Tomás de Aquino, que também desenhava os seus textos e não sei o quê, ou não? Mas, senhores, se calhar vão ao Vaticano, também está truncada a imagem já falsificada. Roubaram um livro que vale uma viva dinheiro, um livro do século XV ilustrado, de teologia, não é? Não deve calcular. Vendeu ali por 30 ou 40 milhões, seja o que for, e metem lá uma cópia. E as pessoas vão lá, se calhar, olham aquilo à primeira vista e dizem, é isto. E depois tem que fazer uma pitagem de carbono 14, não é? Para fazer uma datação para ver se o livro corresponde ao século XV ou não. Oh, meus senhores, é assim, vocês estão atinam, é tudo roubos, fazem tudo o que querem, agora roubaram essas duas cassetes com esta história, este não é importante, estas mortes e não sei o quê, do Ted e do Zanha e do Olaf e não sei o quê, 9 do 11, Sex Lies and Videotapes e o caralho. É tudo assim à casana, até me roubaram o coraçãozinho pequenino. Madeira, veja lá, me está a chatear supinamente. Mais até do que as cassetes, quer que lhe diga. textos no telemóvel é impossível. Montar quer dizer pôr, verificar uma por uma se corresponde às páginas, se não faltou nenhuma destalizada, como chamam, e depois pôr por ordem. Aqui uma tarefa impossível no telemóvel desta dimensão. Bom, só escrevemos só uma coisa da carta de recepção do carimbo. Há aqui uma história do BA também, pelo presidente de Novo Tempo, segundo me disseram, o Jagger, não é? Há dois Jaggers nesta história, um que é cantor e outro é presidente, ou era, não sei, da Coreia. Mas há uma carta enviada, entregue em mão na Police do Luxemburgo, primeiro-ministro, e depois também enviei para o primeiro-ministro francês e italiano, to the General Prosecutor of Grand Ducal de Luxembourg. La plaque à Lisbonne, maintenant, c'est la Grande Duchesse. La dernière fois, je change les plaques, ils viennent même ici à Lisbonne sur les représentations, comme je vous ai déjà donné compte. To the General Prosecutor of French Republic and to the General Prosecutor of Italian Republic. And there's a stamp here, which is the inverted. I'm not even sure if this corresponds or is already forgery. I will show. Mr. Fetz is the man on the cabinet of the Prime Minister Juncker at the time that receives me. This is a stamp made by the man that receive on the reception, which is not an inverted line now, I suppose it's an inverted what? I don't know. Kind of a Warsaw temple or whatever. I suppose they have already forgeries. Why? Because there's this line I was prepared in Luxembourg à 113 cathédrale avec des dragons avertis. Il y a un link qui rentre maintenant à Lisbonne pour cette notion. Les secrets, je ne sais pas quoi, au niveau médiatique. C'était un stamp qu'ils ont mis devant moi à la réception de la rue de la congrégation numéro 4. Il y a une histoire de... Il y a deux histoires en plus en rapport à le bélier de Dieu. Je vous ai parlé hier, je sais pas si j'ai réussi à publier avant, rester sans connexion encore criminellement, copié de la Chine, je crois, avec une fille avec un bélier dans la main qui s'offrait de prendre et vient tout. Je ne sais pas trop qui c'est la vérité. L'image, pour moi, c'est l'image que je veux pas. Mais il y a aussi une histoire assez, la plus vieille church qu'on a ici à Lisbonne, du siècle XI ou XIII. C'est près d'une autre importante pièce qui est sur la table, dans le contexte du Japon, tsunami de 2011, c'est une des places de la rodage du clip Mother of God. It's a little bit more down this story with the Bandara, who is a prophetic figure that lives apparently in Lisbon some centuries ago, with the fire and so on, Vakatful. But I did not even understand at that time what it was. And it's also the restaurant where the remark after shooting on Kaiserslautern, the missing of cell. We have been there lunch, which is a star. This is an old restaurant, only two we have here with the kind of reserves on wood. It's not an amateur one here. There another in Princeton. Bon. This is on the table by this question on tsunami, also in Japan, by the valves of Mother Deus that I'm impeached to proceed in these conditions. And I gave this account, this register on video with my blog when I started to produce videos within already this crime of horror of my son on set, on this church. I was there. It's Pax time, I suppose. And in the right there was a lot of small candles and so on, and the Bailey representation on the postcard on the wall behind these candles. And then when I was there, really there, I also heard an explosion, a very large bang. Bang! This is on my mind now because they have prepared follow-up here on Monet and Neil Pratt with these fellows, and even the connections with these stolen videotapes now, audio recordings of Sex Lives videotapes. And I turned back to see, because there's doors in wood, all the doors in wood, heavy. I did not see already the movement. I don't know how they have done, because I did not see nothing move these doors, because they are small doors where people normally enter. They do not use these doors. That was the only logical possible at this time when it happens. It's impossible. There's some bang. And I said, my Lord, the devil is going out of the church or something. And it was really my feeling. Bon. This was already put en scène en Luxembourg Sainte-Thérèse cathédrale avec cette sculpture haute relief qui existe, le dragon inversé. Et après, c'est la dernière procession de corps de Dieu que j'étais à Lisbonne dans ce crime. J'étais là aussi. Il avait Polycarpe qui était encore vivant. On était assez proche de toute la multitude, on se comprime un peu vers la C, parce que normalement ils sont là, même devant la porte, etc. J'étais à côté, il y a trois sièges de rock, de stone. I see like this, and these are the boys that work on the Bergfiskal de Genochsade. It's a very interesting name because it's a real name. It's a dependence of the Venices, where I have my installations of camping in Latin Europe for more large years. And I knew them very well, because last years without money to pay Plan Mateus, which is a robber political concept. I was even not taking money home, but I was there delivering on hand the payment until the last installment. And I know them from, they are here. And at a certain point, there was a movement of attraction, like protection around Polycarp, done by mariners, military mariners. What's happening here? Oh, I said to me, like, we were circling. There's a remake of this, a proximity remake of this fucking Nazi Marcel Belsoz, in a recent comment video that I have just put now, far away, 3-4 months. On the day, apparently, that he goes to Belay, and we see him walking very quickly by the road or whatever, and there's a mariner, an official, white dresses, she's coming by his side, like putting in the sign, like entering the palace also with him, perhaps a lover, as I say. And this is strange, because this is first of the death of Polycarpe, évidemment. Comme je vous viens de dire, il y a une nuit ici que je sens un anéurisme, un signe d'anéurisme, une contraction de l'ordre. C'est pas une contraction, c'est une douleur ponctuelle dans le corps. Et le lendemain, j'ai vu les nouvelles et ils ont annoncé la mort de Polycarpe avec un heart attack à l'interjouesse qu'il était à ce moment-là. Je trouve ça très différent, très bizarre comme d'habitude dans cette crime. Mais la réalité, c'était un groupe des officiers des marins. Ça peut être de ces groupes, ces fous qui a rentré en scène par les médias il y a quelques-uns déjà, et qui commence par une insinuation qui a des valeurs de l'affondement de Kuski, la mort de son marin, aussi des forces russiennes, et je ne sais pas. Bon, tout ça est raconté par mon côté en écrit et beaucoup des fois commenté, parce qu'il n'y a pas de justice qui marche. On retourne, les choses retournent parfois même parce qu'ils ne sont pas bouclés. Tout ça retourne, c'est la vie. Mais je crois que cette stampe avait un lion inversé fait à le Premier ministre Maison en Luxembourg. Et maintenant, je ne vois pas un lion ici, donc je me demande si entre-temps on aussi les criminels à l'attention pour faire un forgerie sur ce symbole. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il a des autres valeurs qui sont disposées, notamment à Luxembourg, comme je viens des coraux. Et c'était bizarre parce qu'on rentre dans la nave, on ne voit pas cette église qui a le nom de la femme qui m'a piqué l'enfant, si faire un enfant avec moi. Et on écoute les voix, c'était des bas, c'est deux ou trois, c'est parce qu'ils sont dans une partie haut, mais qui on ne voit pas. Donc j'ai l'impression de voir de la rage, de l'affranchissement, si le mot existe, de Dieu qui nous parle, quelque chose comme ça. Et j'ai remarqué d'où venait la voix, et en bas de cette verticale où elle a les corps, il y avait cette haute relève qui est un dragon serpent. C'est un symbole très vaste qui va juste à l'Orient. Comme je viens de dire, continue à aller. Par cette belle fille que je m'ai montré hier avec les deux machines à laver, je ne sais pas où, au milieu de quoi. Il me semble très belle. Par ses rapports avec les béliers. Bon, je m'entretiens dans cet empêchement, torture, constipation, etc. Pas de l'eau à la maison. Je continue à insister à un mandat de capture international contre le Premier ministre, contre le président du Parlement et contre l'actuel président. Là, messieurs, mesdames, cette histoire de la mort italienne de cette jeune fille, dans des déclarations le jour avant d'un juge de la relation, tribunal criminel à Lisbonne, une histoire qui mixe an enigme disposal by him, or at least what they have attributed with Facebook, and that the president had preferred to stay on Caldas de Rinhuis, the place where apparently she was killed, in my point of view. You're not going to blame, but after 3 or 4 days, they say, oh, the president-elect, or when Patrick is living in Caldas de Rinhuis. In the beginning of before his presidency, or at the end, the campaign was on apparently the Palace of Queluz, which is not Caldas de Rinhuis, is nearby Lisbon, saying, oh, you go to the Palace of Queluz to the Palace of Belém. And I asked, but why he was on the Palace of Belém as a cabinet or whatever? No one. And so, of course, these are all parts of the continuous ways to disguise crimes even after that. If to this news. And if this case is from now, because my other pieces disposal on the veil, I can either postulate, as I have explained why in comment video recent, that perhaps this is the case for another time on the past, namely by the construction of a shadow around Cunha Rodrigues as the procurator and not the man in front now, apparently, of the concurrence institution. I'm losing my time with you. J'aime être précis et complet le plus possible dans l'exercice de mémoire. Cette inversion d'estampes, il a seulement 2 inversions d'estampes mises devant moi avant ce crime. L'autre, c'était avant. Bon, j'ai délivré mon accusation au patriarcat de Lisbonne, ça veut dire la sede de l'église de Rome à Lisbonne, qui était près de mes anciennes installations en plus, de ma compagnie no campus da Federal. Et j'étais là, il y a une femme qui a réceptionné ça au patriarcat, et il a mis en stamp, et les stamps c'était aussi inversé. Comme je vous ai publié ce registre de réception de cette accusation formalisée contre l'église de Rome, qui n'est pas jamais répondu non plus. Personne ne répond. Donc il y a seulement 2 inversions de stamp. Une c'était un patriarcat de Lisboa, ou après un an de mort, et plus tard c'était encore vivant. Et il a celle-là à la maison du Premier ministre. Donc, la logique linéaire dans une situation pareille, avec ces différences de temps, qui doit avoir une relation entre ces points, des histoires sur les, je crois, des mensonges, je ne sais pas quoi, de lies, sex and videotapes, because this still goes on in criminal consequences. Even Robert these 2 tapes, audio recording stuff of my participation on this colloquium in Calvi. Life is always very ironic. By itself, I suppose. Est-ce que Polycarpe est mort? Peut-être c'était déjà quand j'étais au Luxembourg, peut-être il me disait de cette façon, cette relation, je ne sais pas. ne sais pas, parce que je ne me souviens pas, hein, et comme vous savez. Et ça, c'était en temps quelques large an avant, 2013 avant, environ, if I remember well, où les choses étaient un peu plus douces. Dans le sens, aujourd'hui, c'est 10 000 fois pire parce que la date, ça continue à être changé, forgé. Mais aussi, en tous les domaines, en tous les types de dates. À quelques ans avant, on était dans une situation moins chaotique et beaucoup moins dangereuse par conséquence. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, des forgeries like this can kill people. They kill people by forgeries many times. In this global Vietnam. Now they rob even economies in large scale by good à good. It's worse, very, very large worse than was at 2013 or 2010 or whatever. Around. Which means 10 years later the situation is really, really heavy worse for all the levels concerning data is information, all kind of information, even application information, codes. Quelques années avant, il fallait avoir une prestation de décor équivalent à ce qu'on a dans les hôpitaux, ou la police et les urgences, qui est toujours ouvert 24 sur 24 heures. Il fallait évoluer les systèmes de réponse de la loi au niveau de l'écart à cette level-là. Mais je crois que je n'avais rien fait. Aujourd'hui, j'ai une nouvelle qui me parle, qui était chargée, je ne sais pas comment, qu'il y a apparemment un ministre nazi ici qui parle en plus de quoi d'un contrat pour ramener la fibre optique à tout le pays. Pour penser combien de millions. Et les questions de sécurité, rien. Je ne sais pas, mais je crois que rien. Parce que vous ne trouverez rien au niveau des sécurités, des communications. Je suis encerclé. Je peux pas, j'ai un téléphone dans la main, je ne peux pas faire des coups de téléphone, je ne le reçois pas, je peux envoyer un SMS, quoi qu'il soit, un email, au recevoir. Et le contrat de ces cartons dit 10 000 SMS, je ne sais pas quoi, comme d'habitude. Donc vous, apparemment, si c'est vrai, parce que ce sont un retour au passé aussi, et avec des questions sur l'Amérique, parce qu'il y a un câble qui a été passé à certains points sur la mer, dans ces crimes. Vous semblez, si c'est vrai, s'il n'y a aucune vérité dans cette nouvelle, dire que vous continuez à pavimenter les routes de la destruction. Un singulier dispositif des coraux dans les églises. Je ne l'avais jamais vu physiquement, je crois. Parce que la nave où il a l'altar, donc on a la messe, les gens qui sont vers la messe, vers l'altar, ne voient pas le corps même. Donc c'est vraiment la présence dans la voix qu'on ne voit pas. Pour moi, c'était singulier, c'est découvert que j'ai fait au Luxembourg, dans cette église. Comme dans les autres églises, surtout dans ces petites églises consacrées à Saint Michael Archangel. C'était pas une église, c'est une énigme de Yiddish, je crois. C'est un artiste allemand qui était là, les crucifixions avec des serpents, morts mais vivants, pas des objets. Taxicodermie, je ne sais pas quoi de ligne, et une liste qui semblait être la liste Schindler. Sans lettres, et avec des contradictions sur le numéro, les noms, je ne sais pas quoi, mais avec une calligraphie de 7 ans en plus. C'est vraiment bizarre, tout ça. Comme d'habitude. Vous me direz, la vie moderne, c'est comme ça, malheureusement. Explosion en C. Ces bruits d'explosion, c'était comme celle-là que je me rends compte qui m'ont fait, heureusement avec un pilote du lit, je sais pas quoi. C'était déjà le Christ avant. La sensation, c'est celle-là. J'ai eu comme c'est bizarre ce mouvement, un rapport de comment un tournage, en tournée de Polycarpe. C'est-à-dire les fois que je l'ai vu vivant. Mais ça, c'est bizarre. Pourquoi ils ont fait ça? Ils sont tous agrupés au moment comme s'ils étaient protégés d'un diable invisible, quelque chose pareil. Je sais pas quoi. Peut-être parce qu'ils sont tous fous. Là, j'étais dans cette partie où je viens, dehors pour fumer une cigarette. Là, un psy qui était là, les cheveux blonds, pas blonds, mais clairs. Derrière, c'était Charles Pierre. Donc, j'étais au téléphone avec un visage un peu troublé, quoi. C'est quoi qui maintenant que 9 ans sur le Luxembourg qui me passe quelques messages que je n'ai pas même compris dans ces histoires avec des invoices, forgeries, and so on company. My dad least place nearby and cigarettes because it's in the place where I'm by. I don't know. Someone is Coulon. I don't know if Coulon, even after all these years. I never realized if Coulon was a lady, for instance. Ernestine Coulon can be a name. I don't know if it exists or is a man. I don't know even if the secretary of the court could is a man or a lady. Can you feel? J'assure cote des ombres dans la vie quotidienne. Et cette Europe, c'est devenu encore une petite session de mixage, je ne sais pas quoi, des ombres de tous les parts. Donc, c'est devenu conflit, tu le sens. C'est vraiment l'enfer. C'est ça qui arrive si on potentient les choses. On a déjà les sombres suffisants chacun de ces pays, dans notre société et vie moderne, je ne sais pas quoi, pour résoudre, pour whatever. Et on ajoute toujours des ombres qui sont là-bas et de l'autre pays, je ne sais pas quoi. Ça devient vraiment impossible de gérer, même au niveau de la justice, je crois. Moi, c'était pas ça. Pardon. Je ne sais pas si j'ai recordé. C'est enregistré, c'est que je viens de dire sur le nom. Je répète. Je dis que je ne sais pas si je l'ai demandé là, à greffe, notamment, que c'est une femme, c'est un homme. Vous me direz, c'est pas important. Non, c'est pas important de savoir si c'est un homme ou une femme. C'est important le nom humain et les rapports des noms avec les gens, etc. J'ai dit là, un énigme disposable, parce que c'est pas la règle ici, de mettre just one letter to identify the pronoun, the first pronoun, I suppose. We don't use these, we don't have these habits to write our names here in this way. And I was asking myself, perhaps by this enigmal disposal, and also reinforced by Coulon, which is not a common French name or whatever for me, or Francophone name, can I say, perhaps more correctly. Then perhaps I have asked, they have given me an answer, say it's a man, or I suppose it's a man. I'm not even sure why I have this doubt, because I was there when I had this enigma disposal, and I was asking at the bottom line, this is part of the tricky of disposal from the beginning, because it's not. Je ne sais pas même si la règle des signatures de représentation d'un nom, mettre des initiales seulement, dans le premier prénom. Je crois que c'est un prénom, mais je ne sais pas, même peut-être pas sûr de ça. J'ai réalisé à dire, je crois que c'est peut-être on ajoute de la lumière sur les ombres. Peut-être par la réalité, c'est tout à fait le contraire. On a fait tous des ombres sur la lumière, à tous les niveaux. On fait des lumières dans toute la vie, à tous les niveaux. On obtient quoi? On obtient quoi? Donc, Jagger. Mr. Jagger. Il doit avoir un prénom, Jagger a eu ce prénom. Ben après, il y a notre Jagger dans cette histoire connectée avec une chute les faits, je ne dis pas lui directement, je n'ai pas de tension pour dire ça, mais un rapport à Shooter MS, ici à Lisbonne, avec des étranges ballets des hommes qui continuent dans le séjour. Clinton and Giraffe and so on, and Middle Orient, and how they call her, the Jewish bomb or something, kind of like with a human suit of Sharon Stone on fatal attraction or whatever, these movies that also mirrors Diana Dead and so on. It's always like this. And when I see Jagger must be another name. It's strange, a signature for someone from a culture Jagger. Then we have all these developments on blood and so on. We start that this is part of the game already. Perhaps it is. I don't know if she's perhaps a German name, I don't know. And this goes until the point that Mike Jagger, recently here on Media's Construction with a polish like a bench with tennis, not like Shunk tennis, that is our team of four planes, but with the two towers representation and buying gastronomy or whatever, and they stole from me a book all prepared to be printed on Portuguese gastronomy. I ask, what is this now? Because I have been robbed. No one says. Robbed every day, everyone what they want in total impunity. Even when people are sleeping with closed doors in their rooms. This is the reality. Here, these guys again, I don't know, because this seems to be connected because he was on this boat in the tribute like the Greek boat, but it's impossible because Michael Jackson is dead, I suppose, for already some large years. And perhaps he's been with him, with Jackson at the time he was here in a discreet way, like in the committee of interim to make a marshal, whatever. And perhaps he was also here when Jagger, the singer, that I suppose is alive and I suppose is living in America, I don't know even, on Great Pigeon was here also. And perhaps this strange projection of voices and the Jagger fall. Jagger can fall, Jagger will fall, I suppose was more emphatic that I have heard. Martin Sheehan. Perhaps was even the voice of Bill, I don't know. I suppose it was a very strange way by all the construction facts that many have organized in a very precisely detailed and sequence, as I gave a full account with even draws to do not rest doubts concerning the preparation with precise develops that we can understand each one, but start summing these what they are doing, with what purpose, what is behind all these. There seems even the image of Sarajevo destruction, Bosnia war by the works in Madonna installations here, Her Majesty at that time, and it's always so complex. Sigma exercises, Sigma exercises all around. It's what people do online. Perhaps most part of people do Sigma exercises because they are obliged by criminal reasons, black nights or whatever, to do it. Nevertheless, the reality is that we are in a permanent Sigma exercise for 9/11, I suppose, and perhaps before in America. There's a movie, The Day of the Rage. It comes to my eyes after 9/11. Some large already years ago, but large also years after 9/11, and an example of this, which means this reality must have already have some hate on daily life peoples of America is what I have postulated to myself at the time that I come this movie, The Day of the Rage. It's ways to trigger peoples to make conflicts, to generate fights and blood. People that are using this kind of, this man, this character, make harm a mouse or whatever, and he becomes so crazy that he starts killing or putting bombs or whatever. I don't even remember. It's the invisible enemy, you know. He gets so mad and he knows that he's being in a very strange, all the seconds in his life trap with all the most opposite behaviors of humans, but he never realized who is the enemy. And when he banks against whatever is in this front. This is a guerrilla reality. This is Sigma exercises. We don't know the face of the enemy, which is already a very strange turn point on the reality of democratic republics, of the states of or whatever. Personally, Polycarp, but what I see him in as public figure interventions and so on, was a calm man. Seems to have a good heart, can be even a violator of church. I don't know by the history of church. It's always one thing that passes to our minds, I suppose. People who know a little bit of reality of life and abuse of this church. And they are facts built here of abuse with the more younger priests. But nevertheless, I did not know him personally, but it's all the interventions that I recall him speaking and acting were a calm man. Perhaps he was a good soul. I don't know even. How can I know? Common name for Portuguese, Polycarp, the fingers, which is, I suppose, for people who are well in heart and conscious. When we know a name like this, we are already well pleased. Can be even a trap. I don't know. Of course, in linguistic terms of relations with people, because this is a church full of history of abuse. I don't know. He seems a calm man, which is an important quality, I suppose, or was. We were young, he was more old, of course. It's like by this was an idea of a parental grandfather figure, can we say? It's even correspondence with his role on the church here in a certain way. Patriarcado, the patriarch. I never speak with him, I suppose, directly, and I cannot even evaluate his own fact just by the image and dance. It seems a good heart, a cool, calm man. I don't know. It does not say nothing. It's just an impression at distance. I do not evaluate. We cannot evaluate things at distance. Perhaps if I start speaking with him, well, it's a terrible mind. That this guy is so well. It's hell on his heart. Perhaps. Nevertheless, I have this impression of him. I saw him this one of the last processions of Body of God that I was of Cristo, and even with the carrying the was called the Sun, which is a tradition from Egypt and the Hermes and so on. And but it's normal, logical for people who know a little bit of theologies, all these different theologies, because the roads are the same in this aspect. Well, very interesting to see in transporting the receivers. We pass from it 20 meters already, and I say, huh? He's transporting the Hathor in the mythology, the vache, la vache sacrée, Hathor. They transport the sun or the moon. It's a double symbol. Like was the vache of Hathor, can I say? And perhaps he was in a certain way. How can I know? She had was a strong voice. Even was in English or American English tone, can be English or American, perhaps can be Bill in the veil of women. It was really impressive. I have heard on spirit. I was saying there's someone nearby. I crossed the street where there's a patio with tables and so on to look at to see if I can identify the source of this projected fire. I did not just find a beautiful lady on the table. Perhaps part of the projection process of the voice. I don't know. The Jagger will fall or something in the kind. I was. What Jagger? I did not even know at the time this night that Jagger, the Mike Jagger from the Rock, whatever, was here. And my first impression was that this was saying about Jagger. The one only that was on my table is this undefined Jagger of Korea. And they want to kill him. Someone wants to kill him now or whatever it was. So it was on my mind when I listened to this. On Jagger will fall. Was like someone was in anxiety pronouncing this. And they have this ability to project his own spirit after passing from this remodulation since Sarajevo stories, which has certain logic concerning Bill because he's president at the time. Nightmare. Real nightmare, you know. I was in contact. I found Korea to fish to understand what was happening, if it was happening, Sammy. And I speak with, they passed me to a lady that calls Niedergrunwald, which is the name of the fort, where was the place on the city of Luxembourg, if I understand well. Well, before there was a fort of a family from there that has this name. La Rue de Courier is in Fort Niedergrunwald. And I speak with a lady that presents herself as a adjunct of the president church of Courier as green, I don't even know. Here's the name, exactly the same name. And he said, what is this now? There's a lady with the name of the street and the fort of the Courier installation. I don't know if she exists or not. And I was trying to fish something. We cannot speak these things because they are shadows. I have heard these on the projection. I'm not to speak with someone that I do not know. If I'm speaking, I do not even can be sure if I'm speaking with Courier. If I'm speaking with a lady that is works with the president church, you have the same name of the problem or the question or whatever, or the evil intention, because the reality after there's a fall of plane of MS. And there was an intention of blood, I suppose, or the resultant was indeed resultants of blood. You cannot, if I don't know, if I was speaking with her, if her is this role that she announced is the real role, and so on and so on. And I just can fish. Tem the concept that I was crazy or whatever, I don't know. It's the logical possible sense if someone has the intelligence to understand that there is fishing in the other side of the phone. No, was a tranquil conversation, whatever, and I don't feel nothing bizarre, which means all the calls that I have with this count was to Greve and never passed through Greve or under Greve to other level, to a judge or whatever. And this was only the strange thing, which means for me when I make the phone to Greve, the general phone or whatever, and they pass or she appears as a agent. Perhaps there's something that they also know that is running or going away or is possible to to go to something area. The only reduction, as I have explained. These Sigma exercises everywhere, Vietnam, whatever, call you what you want, when not together with others. Because in a situation of this, with all these intimacies, even that can be dangerous if we start fishing in an open way, because this can be part of a directed call to the part that is trying to do some harm. If there's an intention of harm, I cannot even detect these. I just see the results. I say there's harm done. Now, if there's a confront between two parts or more than two parts, and this becomes bloody. It's a very strange case, as you know, from the beginning, even mystification concerning the flight trajectories or directions on sky and so on. When I see after, we see these after the plane goes to there and goes by into Russia and so on. If I remember, this has no sense. They are covering something. It can be even dangerous to fish openly, and to Serbia-Croatia war and this question of the shoot on the school and so on. When we know these things, facts that happen, I have analyzed these from the beginning. From the beginning, which means that at that time I said it's impossible, it seems not fit well about the cooperative, about the connection. And it's always very old roads on these conflicts, or they express partial on these more after years, decades conflicts and other bloods, because I don't know if after, I suppose after or before, I give this account. This is right. Someone will have these. Because, for instance, I found a lady on the bus on Route Saint-Bent. I was on the bus. She stopped and goes out and said, vous avez raison. Elle m'a dit français. J'ai une sensation lecture de médecin, peut-être Médecins sans frontières ou un groupe pareil, et qui me disait de cette façon, qui avait rentré et sorti dans le bus, que j'avais raison. Je ne sais pas si c'était avant, c'était après, mais c'est des questions. The shoot of RMS is this question of the virology chief of ONU at the time, and of RMS and Airbus and things like that. And this is a very complex question, also already a very complex question by the values, by the next possible values. When I'm confronted with a situation like this on the bus in French, a lady that seems a doctor says to me, you have right, and so on. This is a thing that passes on my eyes at 1 meter or 2 on the corridor of a bus. I evaluate this. I attempt to evaluate this. More than it's, which I want to say is there are shadow places that are, if they are nearby, we have a presence, physical presence, between, and can evaluate things in a different way, the true or not true of a shadow. And this is impossible on a phone conversation with someone that we don't know. It presents as being, I don't know whom, neither involved the adjunct of the president of the court. Can be, cannot be. I don't know her, I don't know even her voice, her tone, I remember. And when I am on bus and I have a shadow play at my distance of my body in this way, I tend to evaluate it to give more value to the possibility to be true. At limit, it can be just a lie to disguise the truth, but it seems not. This was important at the time, because this is these questions of heroes and so on. It's a worry problem for all, I suppose, in this plan. What I say in the veil of the shooting of MS is this is returns to 93. There's an intermediate on the past step, the year 93 comes, and we are one of the oldest cinemas that we had, not already for decades, working and by the other side, where there were pornographic movies for people. I just entered once and I see briefly 3 minutes and I saw sexual representation on a big screen. I was impressed. And it was a lady that seems skinny figure. And I forget this. The girlfriend of Capitan Fury, you remember this series, American series on 24 police station in New York. I see her, I say, this is the lady, it seems the lady that he was dating, that was a lawyer, and they had problems at the end. I suppose they did not even marriage, whatever. Yeah, because this series passed here on the FTP at that time. And I went to see to me. Now I see her, still was Nancy Pelosi in front of the Congress. It was very strange like this. But nevertheless, these days start me sending this tweet, and there's Derby, is a small snack bar on the corner, and Solmar was Solmar, the oldest, one of the oldest marisqueiras and so on, that I eat sometimes there. Last time that I ate on was on my birthday, in an invisible dinner with Goggles by Google Crimes, and I explained to them how was the plan of the receipts of Channel Zero that they have stole after. They have stole the Channel Zero, not Google, I don't know. And then they have stole also my project of incomings because it's become a reality on Google. Can you figure? And I was in Derby, open my pocket, and I say I will hit a steak, un prego, as we call it now, and €7.5, which is a lot of money for me in these last 20 years to these conditions. And they connect the plasma, appears this fucking lady from SIC Television and Caetano with a very dark hair, I suppose she had. Large, like a lioness, like a geisha lioness. Never saw her with a hair like this. It was prepared, I suppose, perhaps a fake hair. And then I see Bill Clinton on the stadium, sit on like he was assisting the montage or the reverse or whatever. And he makes like D. My reading was the accident of Diana by the movement on the Mercedes and so on. And then someone receives the phone on the snack bar, disconnect. Or disconnected already prepared the emission to maintain the anchor, the enigma. This is going until these details. But nevertheless, there's always ways to research these because, as I gave the count, this was aired on SIC television then. SIC television had persons and not robots, speaks with Anna Caitan, speaks with Bill Clinton, blah, 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 and start pulling the feel until light is done. Never. They all play these trickies and these crimes. These are crimes results in crime. As a result in crime. But in the morning, when I descended to Alcântara, there was two Chryslers, like presidential silver Chryslers, turning from Avenida Ceuta. And I was crossing the street, and they were like turning to me, like hitting and run, which was not perhaps an advice to me that something was happening. Perhaps they have already the conscience that something was on there. But I never saw two Chryslers like this in Lisbon. And I said, what happened here now? And I go to the kiosks in front of these two ATMs of this recent robber in March of 20 years. Not even with 20 euros we can recover for a bank robber. And I see a cover, I see a lady like this, with closed almost eyes with a blue suit. This is Sharon Stone photo cover with the Reno of the eyes and so on in French font. And was present the Bombay Israelite, não sei quê. He was this lady, Raphael, Ibar Raphael. I was really puzzling. This is the beginning of this day. Then at the end of the day, I was there on Derby. Derby is a game. It's horse and banks. And it's very strange. And it's mounted and I come walking until here, as I had the habit to do these years with less hate on my shades of this Nazi regime. And was all display, a very display that still goes on after on media, after the fall of the plane. And I go home to the car. It's always, which means I always receive all evidences that can lead people to understand. One question is puzzling me is why this work is never done in a clear way to begin to the end and arrive to a conclusion. Because this goes on every day. Each time was, I suppose, more frequency at all the levels, mixing everything and nothing. And the resultant is damage, all kind of damage. Almost one thing that I've come to my mind is this part of this construction, part of this construction put on these albums by who have done it, I suppose not only Christine. This is a very elaborated mind. Aside the question of advertising in Brazil was already on the table by the perversion against the Republic here by Cavaco, elected by an advertising man with another behind it, also quoted, I suppose indirectly there, by Christina, and in very strange terms, as you can understand if you read all my previous detailed knowledge. It's like a kind of provocation and so on. And there's a Sisyphus representation of a blood coming off a red lamp, And you figure, IMS delegation was composed mainly by Netherlands peoples, where red light exists is a term for them, but it's also the concept of advertising that someone has used many years ago here. Then we have these crimes of Cavaco election, elected by advertising and other things behind, must I postulate it. And then the socialists do the same after. This is share of sin and crime. These are crimes, ethics are crimes. But there's also Malmo. Malmo is Sweden. Sweden indirectly is not, I don't know if Olaf Palme is from Malmo or whatever. I suppose not. But this can be in parts. A memory future or clues or whatever, or bullets or revenge built around Olaf Palme. Because this is on the table also by this robber of sex lies and VRJs and so on. Have a certain logical internal sense by the crimes itself, the timeline. I suppose perhaps in the embassy quarters there was already some interest concerning this, I don't know. Olaf, but this is Olaf Isanya is Ted Pound, the Ted Kennedy is more complex. Still goes on with Ted's on Kennedy family and mixed with already tsunami in my point of view in 2005 and so on. And the other is the robber of the concept MTV, disguised by the public television, which means the Portuguese state. Disguised crimes of robber, of Portuguese people, And also says that they serve other interests, extra-national, against the Republic. It's a very basic lie, as I remarked the day that this boy comes to my company speaking about the 10th anniversary of MTV. I said to him, 10th anniversary of MTV, because I realized in the instant there was a tricky already mounted. This is done by televisions that belongs to the medias of state and public manners and so on, ladies and gentlemen. It's like crimes. If we RTP have done a musical channel at that time with Paul Lopes, as I have present idea with African or universe African musical and so on. This was the fuckers controlling and cutting goodies to protect flowers, I suppose. This was important even for our relations with African countries that speaks our language and even money, commerce and so on. After these fucking cells, robber and sells for peanuts. And worst of these are done by people who are under the hedge of the Portuguese state, the Republic. Which are crimes against the Republic. Really was a city for years with different chapters, I suppose, overtaken. But at the end, they will not stay together because I suppose she becomes tricky lawyer. She suffer of this terrible disease of lawyers, become shittings. If I remember well, I don't know. Because first he was a lady that started dating him because he's the chief police of New York, 24-hour station, and she was always over him to not allow him to cross the line, to make his role, but under the boundaries of law, if I remember. And they became dating at the end, I suppose because she becomes tricky. But she was already a tricky liar. It's a terrible professional with a terrible disease, very common, worse than virus. From the time of, como é que era? O Vailan, não era? Não é o Vailan do francês do Chaumont, era o Chevalier Ardent, Vailan, They were meant to fight for justice and protection of peoples and do it always well without crossing any line. This was expectable when we were small. There's figures that deal with protection of peoples. And lawyers, was the lawyer of these times with a sword on the hand at that time, some centuries ago. But nevertheless, is the idea of a defender, and the defender that do not trick others. And this has become a very contagious disease because they all become tricky to solve. You say to me because law do not answer cutting all these days. They do not solve things by what they expect, or they become tricky and they do a terrible harm to justice. I know. And we have this idea os paladinos da justiça, não é? Os paladinos da justiça, as pessoas que defendiam as vítimas e defendiam-nas dentro das regras. Não lhes passava pela cabeça ficarem assim, não é? Atuarem assim, ou por baixo da mesa, ou por cima da mesa. Era de espada na mão e por cima, porque tinha que ser a sério, não é? As pessoas com espada na mão, quando começam a fazer assim, também morrem logo, às vezes não matam. The single will be the last for today for my monologue with the Heavils and the Heavian world. Even on the albums now, as they are in some articles of Nazis media, there is also the wave representation as they put on this Africa and this damage all around the world, mainly on the region of tsunami 2005. Just to be clear, I cannot even be sure it's not tranquil meanwhile, but it's also represented on a hair. Festival de Publicidade de Lisboa, uma lâmpada que parece sortida sem um mito decisivo. A baixa criatividade portuguesa. Jornal Alta Thompson. Agora que você já chegou cá abaixo, não tinha dúvidas. Fale connosco e coloque o produto lá em cima. Derrama a publicidade. Que engraçados. Vocês são do Piri, ok? Com a representação da estrela. Cara, entretanto, porque agora estou a ver se encontrava essa evidência do cabelo equivalente em popa, como vocês representaram nesse candidato aí do hat-trick e destas desgraças todas, e já não vejo. Estava nos artigos jornais, está a ver? Esta coisa da taça, não sei o que, dos futebols e de Malmo também dizem estas coisas das mudanças, não sei de quê, nos balneários e o caralho. E essa imagem já desapareceu, vieram cá entretanto pescá-la enquanto eu fui lá abaixo, ontem. Quem é o filho da puta? Quem prende quem? O caralho? Tem coisa do MTV, não sei o que, Capitão Sol, Madonna, etc. David Hasselhoff, acho eu, não é? O Kitty, está a ver? A representação da onda, não sei se isto está alterado, se não minuar, mas